So I'm in the process of doing quite a lot of maintenance at the moment on various bits of my studio for various different reasons. This piece, the Yamaha FB-01, is out of one of the racks because the battery is just about to die on it. So I thought I would take the opportunity to take it out and replace the battery. But while I've got it out, I thought I'd just do a quick piece on what the FB-01's all about. As I said, I picked this up for, I can't remember now, but it was under £50 5 or 6 years ago, and I predominantly bought it because the factory presets on this are some of the factory presets that sort of ended up on the DX7, or DX7 transferred to this. The unit is sort of 1986-87 area, and of course it was sort of pretty sort of high-end spec at the time, although people might sort of like turn their nose up at it now. But my mantra really is, don't turn your nose up at old pieces of kit, because old pieces of kit sometimes have the sounds that you're really after. In this case, it has an electric piano, that Yamaha electric piano that you heard on so many things, late 80s, early 90s. It has a couple of sort of really quite nice stringy type sounds, which are sort of not bad for sort of sticking in the background of a mix if you're playing around with something. And it also has some sort of fairly nice sort of funky bass sounds on it, which also sort of came from that era. So, you know, they're standard sounds that are loaded presets into the unit, okay, which is the reason I bought it. If I was to do a little bit of a tour of the unit, switch it on, it normally says FB-01 ready. Sounds a bit like Thunderbirds, doesn't it? And then it goes into the first patch. Everything is controlled through this sort of sequence of 8 switches on the front of the unit. I'll give a zoom out at the end of this. In terms of sort of patch assignment, assignment of channel, MIDI channels, tone assignment, that sort of stuff can all be done from here. However, it is limited. You can't really edit the tones on this. There's very simple editing on the unit itself. If I'm brutally honest, I never edit the tones on this one. It is there for what it's there for. But I did have a sort of I did think about getting a tone editing program for it. I've seen a couple on the internet. One was FB-01 sound editor, but there doesn't seem to be anything for the Mac. I've seen a couple of Atari based editors, but I've not got an Atari. I'm never likely to own an Atari, so I wouldn't bother with that. I may at some point download the one for PC, but I haven't so far, so I can't really comment whether it works or not. If I spin it around the back, it's got the standard stereo left and right outs, 3 MIDI channels in, out and through. It's got a memory protect, a hard memory protect switch on the unit, which was sort of quite common around that point in time, which you need the screwdriver to switch on and off. So you can, if the battery's working, protect your user presets that you put into the unit. As I said, my battery has just about died on this, and then an on-off switch. To be honest, the on-off switch is a bit of a pain, being where it is, because if it's in a rack, you can't get your hand round to switch it on and off. So I actually have it wired in a slightly different way, so I can switch it off manually. And in actual fact, all my instruments, I make sure that I can switch them off so they don't sit in the rack and potentially put a hum on the supply, even though I've got a clean supply coming into each rack. So that's the FB-01. What are sort of some of the highlights of the unit? Well, it's an 8-part polyphonic unit. It's quite often quoted as being the poor man's DX7. I'm not sure I would agree with that in totality. I think it has its place. It's only a 4 operator, whereas the DX7 is a 6 operator. It's only 8-part polyphonic, whereas the DX7 is 16-part polyphonic, or the Mark II is. or my Mark II is anyway. So it's not as functional as the DX7, and obviously you can't program the thing from the front panel like you can potentially from the DX7, although personally on the DX7 I use a software program as well, because trying to program it from the front panel is a nightmare. So it has some interesting features. I mean, you can split the tones that you're playing, so you can generate tones on different MIDI channels and then split those tones to actually fire out the left or the right audio out on the back here, should you wish to. In fact, in the literature it says you can actually have 8 parts triggered by 8 MIDI channels playing through either the left or the right channel. But you can still only have 8 notes playing at the same time, so to be honest it's a bit pointless doing that. The most I've ever had is 2 tones playing through, triggered by separate MIDI channels but still coming out the stereo sign. So I can vouch that works, but going down to the other part, no, never done that, not quite sure why you want to anyway. So that's the FB-01. So I said when I was whizzing this around in my hand, I'd give you a zoom about the front panel of this. It's relatively simple to use. It's not as intuitive as you might think. However, it's relatively easy to get your head around once you understand what's going on. Basically, along the bottom we have instrument assignment, instrument function, voice function, voice select. By pressing on any of these here, you can see the voice that's been selected. Using the plus minus, you can scroll through the various voice banks there are, like so. You can also go through by pressing the buttons several times, a number of modes on this, so pitch bend wheel, bender range, portmanteau time, whether you're in a mono or poly mode. Moving on to this, output levels on channel 1, whether you want to move the octaves up and down, detunes. Stereo, in this case it's set for left and right. Low frequency filter. MIDI channel, notes assigned to that MIDI channel, so as I said I've got this split 4 and 4. Limit left and right, so you can actually limit where it lands on the keyboard, where it will respond to. It will respond for full 8 octaves, so a full 88 key keyboard can be responded to, although to be honest when you get some of the sounds at the high end or the bottom end they're rubbish. But in the sort of the general area where that sound is meant to live, so the bass is down the bottom end of the keyboard and some of the strings in that sort of middle to top end of the keyboard, it's not bad. And that really is how the FB-01 rolls. As I said, it's relatively limited in terms of what you can set up on the actual unit itself in terms of editing, but it's a good workhorse. Sit in your rig and do what it's told to do for years to come if you treat it right.